if someone wants to start seeking knowledge, how should they go about it?
Wallahi guys, this is a very, very common question. I've had so many young brothers, sisters contact me. What should we start with? Okay, I'm going to talk about the mahfuzat, what a person should memorize, because that's vital. And then also some of the books maybe to go through. Because guys, you have to understand, and I always bang on about this, and I actually began to think that I'm maybe becoming a bit too extreme, going overboard in advising the people to memorize. And I began to think as well, maybe some brothers that I was advising, they're beginning to get offended, okay? Because wallahi, this is knowledge. And let's go back to the kibar, the scholars that are from the elite of our time. And even though if they're not from the elite, those who, subhanallah, when the students of knowledge look at them, they see them to be from the most amazing of those who, they have sat with the likes of Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi. And I heard this from him when he recently came and he taught us 16 books in 8 days. Okay, Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi, he mentioned his ta'zeem al-ilm, فلا بد من علم فلا بد من حفظ ومن ظن أنه ينال العلم بلا حفظ فإنه يطلب محالا. Because you have to memorize. Whoever thinks he's going to obtain knowledge without memorizing, then this person is chasing the impossible. Okay, and a very nice speech that he heard from Shaykh Salih, Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin. He heard this from Ibn Uthaymin, the great scholar who has, هو غني عن التعريف. He doesn't need me to, or he's too good to be known, or me to give a definition or to talk to you lot about who he is. Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi said that he heard, and I heard it from Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi. He said, حفظنا قليلا وقرأنا كثيرا. Ibn Uthaymin, he says, حفظنا قليلا وقرأنا كثيرا فانتفعنا بما حفظنا أكثر من انتفاعنا بإيش؟ بما قرأنا. He said we benefited more from that which we memorized, more than that which we benefited from that which we read. Okay, so you have Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi in our time saying this. You have him, quoting Shaykh Salih al-Uthaymin, Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin. Okay, so you have the kibar of the scholars of our time. Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi is also, a member of the Hayat Kibar al-Ulama, the major scholars of our time. I also heard this from Shaykh Muhammad bin Hizam, one of my mashayikh in Dammaj. Okay, he said very nice, and I was sitting in his lesson when he mentioned this. He was like, Ya tullab al-ilm, students of knowledge, memorize. Attending lessons is something that everybody can do. The old one, the young one, the granny, the granddad. Every person can attend lessons because it's easy. As for memorization, it's hard, and that's why the majority of people don't do it. Okay, and he's a person who's memorized Bukhari, Muslim, Riyadh Salihin, Bulugh al-Maram, Jami' al-Sahih, مما ليس في الصحيحين of the Kitab Shaykh Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i alayhi rahmatullah, was from the Shaykh al-Shuyukhina. And he also remembers Alfiyat ibn Malik, Alfiyat al-Iraqi, Mandumat al-Imriti. He's a bahar when it comes to memorization. And if you look at the books he's authored, you'll understand why. Okay. Also my other Shaykh, Abdul Hamid al-Hajuri, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, who's currently in Mecca, he memorized Sahih Muslim. Okay. And something very nice that I saw was, because he taught me Aqeedah, he taught me a chain of books in Aqeedah. Him and Shaykh Salih Sindi, they're very similar. Shaykh Salih Sindi, who currently teaches me in the Prophet's Masjid. Okay. He was teaching us Wasitiyah. I studied Aqeedah al-Wasitiyah from them both, which is a risala, a treatise from Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. Both of them are very similar in such a way where they come to the lesson and everything they say is from the top of their heads. Wallahi, Shaykh Salih al-Sindi really blew me away. Wallahi, blew me away. Ahadith, ba'da ahadith, ayat, ba'da ayat. Comes to a nuqta in the book and he's just explaining with so many hadith. Likewise with Shaykh Abdul Hamid al-Hajuri. Okay, and when you look at it, they're both memorized. And subhanAllah, one time I went up to Shaykh Salih Sindi. I said to him, Ya Shaykh, do you have all your proofs and evidences written down somewhere so I can benefit from it because I want to memorize it? And also the lines of poetry that you always quote from Nuni of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. And he looked at me and he said, no, I don't have one. So I said to him, Shaykh, I've compiled some, and he said, Ni'ma ma fa'ad, what an excellent thing that you've done. And it just totally amazed me, like Shaykh just comes and is already on the back of his head and he's just giving it. I thought maybe he would have something on paper where he revises before he comes to the lesson. And you have Shaykh Abdul Hamid who memorized Sahih Muslim. Even though, Shaykh Abdul Hamid, I love him more, but I actually think that Shaykh Salih Sindi is a bit more, stronger when it comes to giving different awjuh, when it comes to speaking about the topics and the doubts that might be brought by the mulhideen, the atheists and the people of innovation. Is mashallah very good at that as well. Okay, subhanallah. So these mashayikh guys, they advise us to memorize. Okay, I'm just going off again, but there's some very nice lines of poetry that Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi, he mentioned of what a person should firstly start memorizing. Okay, and within it I will mention books because he advises with that as well. And the first thing that a person should memorize is the Quran. He mentions وَقَدِّمِ الْقُرْآنَ ثَبِّتْ حِفْظَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِهَا وَأَتْقِنَنَّ لَفْظَهُ وَتَقْصِدَنَّ فِي أَوَّلِ الْمَسِيرِ لِحِفْظِ مَتْنِ جَامِعٍ قَصِيرِ. Okay, the first thing that a person should start with is the Quran, and he should also try to master it and become solidified in mastering the alfad, because you find that in the Quran there's mutashabihat, right? There's ayat that are very similar to one another. Okay, so if a person doesn't know the similarities of the ayah, he might come to one and he's reading a ayah from another. So one thing that really helped me, what I would do when I finished, I would write on the side of the Quran the mutashabihat, the very similar ayat. Sometimes you find وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. In another ayah you find فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. Okay, so فَاعْبُدُونَ at the end and فَاتَّقُونَ at the end. Okay, so you write the side of the page, okay, in this surah you have this word. Okay, and he also then said وَلْتَقْصِدَنَّ فِي أَوَّلِ الْمَسِيرِ لِحِفْظِ مَتْنِ جَامِعٍ قَصِيرِ. In the beginning, one should try to memorize a small, comprehensive, a book from the different funun. Like for example, when you go to Qawaid al-Fiqhiyya, you have the Manduma of Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, which goes Alhamdulillah al-Ali al-Arfaqi wa Jami' al-Ashya'i wal-Mufarriqi the Ni'am al-Wasi'ati al-Ghazira wal-Hikam al-Bahirati al-Kathira until the end of the ayat. You come to a Sirah, you have the lines of poetry which was compiled by Ibn Abd al-Izz al-Hanafi called Arjuzatul Mi'iyya, which goes Alhamdulillah al-Qadim al-Bari thumma salatu ala al-Mukhtari wa ba'duha kasirat al-Rasuli manzumatan mujizat al-Fusuli until the end. You also have al-Mustal al-Hadith, the Bayquniyya. Also then when it comes to Tawheed, you have different books that one can study, Qawaid al-Arba', Usul al-Thalatha, Usul al-Sitta, Kashf al-Shubahat, Fadl al-Islami, Kitab al-Tawheed, these books that were done. You have in Aqidah, Aqidah al-Wasitiyya, Lum'at al-I'tiqad, Aqidah al-Raziyain, Usul Sunan Imam al-Humaydi rahimahullah ta'ala. We've gone through some of these books on the channel. Ustad Abdul Rahman has gone through many books as well. You can find on his channel. Then Aqidah al-Tahawiyya. Okay, that's when it comes to that. طيب. When it comes to that which one should memorize from the books of hadith. Okay, Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi, he mentions in some other lines of poetry, he says فَاحْفَظْ كِتَابَ الْأَرْبَعِينَ أَوَّلًا فَعُمْدَةً ثُمَّ الْبُلُوغَ كَمِّلًا ثُمَّ رِيَاضًا أَزْهَرَتْ لِلنَّوَوِي فَهَؤُلَاءِ حِفْظُهَا يَبْنِ الْقَوِي. Because the first thing you should memorize أربعين نووي. The second thing is عمدة الأحكام. The third thing بلوغ المرام, and the fourth thing رياض الصالحين. رياض الصالحين, and this will build a very strong student of knowledge, and wallahi is very true. Okay, and one thing that I might want to add to that is a kitab called Al-Mukhtar min Hadith Sayyid Al-Abrar fi Al-Mu'taqad Al-Sahih. Okay, this kitab Al-Mukhtar, brothers and sisters, is 360 hadith related to Tawheed and Aqidah, which my Shaykh Muhammad bin Hizam that I spoke to you about earlier, who memorized all them books, he compiled, and you can find in Dar Nasiha here in Al-Madinah, which is in front of the Jami'ah. and he talks subhanAllah about many different abwab, and I've tried to promote that as much as possible. You come to the Asma wa Sifat, you come to the Tawheed, it gives you a bunch of ahadith, and gives you a very good foundation when it comes to knowing the textual evidences from the Sunnah. You come to the Khilafah, gives you the hadith. You come to Khuruj al-Hakim, exiting, revolting against the world, it gives you a bunch of hadith. Mawani' al-Takfir, it gives you another hadith. And many different, the Ashrat al-Sa'ah, what happens on Yawm al-Qiyam, Shafa'a, al-Qadar, al-Iman, gives you a bunch of hadith. So when a person, he teaches now, let's just say Aqeedah, he comes now where the Sahib al-Matan might talk about you seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Yawm al-Qiyam. What's the proof? Hadith Jarir. أَمَّا إِنَّكُمْ سَتَرَوْنَ رَبُّكُمْ كَمَا تَرَوْنَ هَذَا الْقَمَرِ إِلَى آخِرِهِ. Okay, so I want to add on to that inshallah ta'ala. Then after that, he mentions some other lines of poetry. وَبَعْدُ يُؤَهَلُ الطُّلَّابُ لِحِفْظِ سِتَّةِ الصَّوَابُ مَعَ اتِّبَاعِ مَنْهَجِ الزَّوَائِدِ فِي ضَبْطِهَا وَالتَّحْقِيقِ لِلْفَوَائِدِ. Kutub al-Sitta. If Allah, makes you reach that, let's just try maybe do the basics first, but if you do, you go through Kutub al-Sitta. Sorry, the 4 books. After Bukhari, Kutub al-Sitta, naam. Bukhari, Muslim, Sunan Abi Dawud, then Tirmidhi, then Nasa'i, and then Ibn Majah. What happens after that? You start going through Zawaid, Ma'ajim, Tabarani, and all these other books. Okay? To benefit more. And I'll conclude with some lines of poetry. He mentions, فلتحفظوا نصيحة العصيم فإنها السبيل نحو الريم ستشرق الأيام بالحقائق ويحمل الخذول عزم السابق. He says to you, memorize the nasiha of al-Usaymi. And all this that we mentioned, he has many lines of poetry. Memorize it, you will come to realize one day. And the person, the disappointed individual who knows he should have done something, but now he's come to realization, he will think to himself, and he will appreciate the person who excelled him in knowledge, that which he done was the right thing to do. The disappointed individual is not thinking, if only I wish I'd done this. And wallahi, we want khair for the people. We want the people to memorize, to really benefit. There's many people, they take the wrong path when it comes to seeking knowledge. And they're all over the place. I remember in Damaj I saw this, and I see it now as well. One of the first things we should start with is the Quran. A person, he might jump into other things. He might be running around trying to get different lessons. I'm not saying to you don't get these lessons, but we have awlawiyat. Everything goes back to the Quran and the Sunnah. When you study Tawheed now, the majority of the ayat that the Imam is going to mention in the book is ayat. You have it inside the Quran, you've already got it, locked down. And likewise all the other funun. Likewise a hadith, when you're studying a hadith now in Kulliyat al-Hadith, to have a good foundation is something great. And all the other funun, it always somehow goes back to the Quran. فَهَذَا هُوَ الْأَصْلُ. Guys, so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us from what we heard, and to make us from the huffaz, those who benefit, and also most importantly guys, to make us sincere. Guys, wallahi, no matter what we do, if we're not sincere in what we learn and we do, then wallahi, nothing is going to be a benefit of us. Rather, it's going to be a hujjah against us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. We're going to come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and we have absolutely nothing. الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيٌ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. Come on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we thought we was doing something, but what? We have actions that are nullified. We don't have any actions. Okay, and also Shaykh Salih Usaymi, he mentioned in his Kitab Ta'zim al-Ilm, he says that فَإِنَّ الْمَرْأَ يَنَالُ الْعِلْمَ عَلَى قَدْرِ إِخْلَاصِهِ. A person, he obtains knowledge in accordance to his sincerity. Okay, and I'll conclude with this, something that I saw from Shaykh Sulaiman al-Rahili when I was studying with him here. He was sitting on the chair and he was advising the people with sincerity. He said, me sitting on this chair, I'm striving against myself to keep myself sincere. وَمَنْ يَأْمَنُ بَعْدَكَ يَا Shaykh Sulaiman, and who's safe? If this is like from what we see from the apparent, the most righteous of people in our time, نَحْسِبُهُ كَذَلِكَ وَاللَّهُ حَسِيبُهُ وَلَمْ زَكِي عَلَى اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Then where do any of us ever stand? Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah ta'ala, what did he say? He said, مَا عَالَجْتُ شَيْئًا أَشَدَّ عَلَيَّ مِنْ نِيَّتِي. I haven't tried to work on and cure more, I severely tried so hard, more than my intention. Why? فَإِنَّهَا تَتَقَلَّبُ عَلَيَّ. Why? Because it keeps turning from side to side. Also Sulaiman al-Hashimi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that I might narrate a hadith and I have an intention, and then I reach a part of that hadith and I have another intention, so I need to work on the intention. Okay, so then he mentioned فَإِنَّ الْحَدِيثَ الْوَاحِدْ يَحْتَاجُ إلى نِيَّات. One hadith requires multiple intentions, you to keep being sincere, you know. So wallahi, sincerity is something important. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ أَنَا أَغْنَى الشُّرَكَاءِ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. It's something very important that we need to keep reminding ourselves with all the time. You know, make us all sincere. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.